Hello again. I think we've broken the ice a bit with Ableton in the first section, and now we're moving on to our second video. I already explained it in the previous section. I only showed the things we need at a beginner level. I'm continuing to explain in the same way, as best as I can. As we now know, we can open and close this octave on the left side. We need to take a closer look at this panel. Here we see the titles, the collections. These won't be visible to you right now. This is what this is for. As time progresses, we start using and installing plugins and using them regularly, which I assume we don't know what a plugin is at the moment. This is something that will help you create a folder for your favorite plugins that you use the most in the future. So again, this is a plugin that we don't need right now. Right below this, there's a category. The categories should look the same for you right now. 90 days from the link in the description. I assume you have downloaded the trial version, therefore you too. You are currently using the trial version of the suite version, which is the highest version of Ableton. So that means the parameter here will be pretty much the same for all of us. These plugins might not be visible right now. As I said, don't worry about these right now. What categories are there? There are sounds. Sounds are things that are ready to use with Ableton's own instruments. Drums the same way. There's also a category called instruments. Here we have our own interface. Let's say there are plugins. Audio effects, as the name suggests, is a file that contains sound effects. We'll be using these areas quite often. We'll be using audio effects quite often. We'll be using the instruments from time to time and the drums as well. There are MIDI effects as well. We'll be using these from time to time as well. This is Max for Life. It's a completely different story. We don't need it at all right now. Move on. Plugin. I'm assuming you don't have any plugins yet. So let's move on to this part. Clips and samples. Things I don't use very much. So let's move on to this part. In places as well. There's a nice feature about places. Here, when you set it up new, there could be packs, user library, and current project. What's here is different for me. And there's an add folder option at the bottom. This helps you do that. It allows us to quickly access the folders located on our computer. Without closing the program or changing the interface or window, we're creating the most commonly used ones right here. Because it's something that allows us to quickly access files we can pull from the desktop, from downloads, from samples, or if you have such a file on an external hard drive, for example. When you click Add Folder from here, you can quickly select from here where and what you want to add from your computer. I often use my desktop just like everyone else. I selected the desktop. When I say open, it will immediately add the shortcut here. And so, when you click here, you'll be able to access all the files on your desktop. In this sense, Places is also a place we use a lot. As I mentioned, we always keep this bottom left corner open, at least until you learn the program's interface well. So let's keep this here. Our story on the left side is actually made up of this. And now over here on the right, we're seeing very small little things, buttons. The yellow things are always from the program interface. You should now be familiar with it. It means it's in an active state, or it means you've selected that parameter. These little buttons on the right are input and output. Right now we don't know what's happening, so we can open and close them. They can stay open here. It doesn't matter. They can stay out in the open. It doesn't matter. We can close it. As you can see, when we close it, the things in that tab over there disappeared. We don't know what the input-out button is. Right now we don't need it anyway. So, let's keep them closed. There are two concepts called send and return. Look at the senders here. These are our sends. We don't know what it's for, so they can stay closed. They can stay open, it doesn't matter. The returns also appear as two channels here for you. Here it comes by default as fix, reverb, and delay. They can stay closed. Again, we won't be using it for now. Here is the mixer. As you can see in the mixer, our interface is in this channel. Our volume meters, our models. Let's say it's something that opens and closes the places at the level we can see the sounds. This will stay open. Here, there's a parameter called delay compensation time that we never use. It will stay closed and most likely will remain closed forever. He puts a crossfade here in X. If your goal is to DJ with this program, you can keep it open. We don't prefer the width of the kiwi, so this can also stay closed here. After a while, the things we're doing here and as our process progresses, things are going to start getting more and more chaotic. So, since we will need more space within the current screen we're using, we often close this parameter on the left side. And when we need something from here, we will open it again. So for now, this can either stay closed or remain open. The other thing you need to know is this. Everything else on this screen, when we switch to the arrangement screen, everything here is available as a counterpart. So every button, parameter, and anything you can think of here is exactly the same as what's there. For example, in our previous lesson, we learned how to turn the metronome on and off. When we pressed it, it was playing, and it had a level here, if you remember. We can adjust it as much as we want. When we go to the other Quest screen, its equivalent is right here. You can already see its equivalent on the other screen in the same color. Look, I was able to open and close it from here again. Our files on the other screen. When we close it, for example, look, it's closed here, but it's still open on the left side where we closed it. Therefore, the parts of both screens where we can access these file sections or shortcuts or instruments, and therefore the things we will need most in the interface, are different on both screens. It has a toggle button for opening and closing. We open and close these depending on the situation, and we either keep the things we need open or we don't. There's nothing that makes a difference. In the previous lesson, when I was introducing the parameters at the top, I mentioned that I skipped something that I should have shown you. These are the variable and measure numbers. It shows us the measure of this piece. The reason I'm showing you this is, all the songs you know, or those that have been made so far, especially in a certain genre, are made in a 4-beat rhythm. A certain type of music, they are made in a 4-beat rhythm. So, a musical term indicating that there are 4 full beats per bar, per measure, for the things we will generally do. I didn't show this because it's a parameter that changes very rarely. But if there are friends who are still wondering about it, let me clarify this right here. I can guarantee you that we won't be changing this 99.9%. Yes. Actually, when you look at it, in 2 lessons and 2 videos, we learned what the basic things we need to make music in Ableton Live. Now, I think we're ready to start writing music and dive a little deeper. So we can move on to the next video right away. See you, goodbye.